What happens if Canada cuts off its oil supply to the U.S.? What if Canada suddenly decided to limit its energy exports to the United States? Imagine gas prices soaring by 20 to 30% within just a few months. Filling up a car would become significantly more expensive, and industries that rely on fuel, like transportation, manufacturing, and farming, would see skyrocketing costs. American businesses might even struggle to get the materials they need, leading to product shortages and higher prices across the board. The energy battle between the U.S. and Canada isn't just a hypothetical scenario. It's a real issue brewing beneath the surface, with massive economic consequences on the horizon. The oil production cut that shook the global market. A sudden decision by a group of oil-producing nations, known as OPEC, has sent shockwaves through the global market. By cutting back on oil production, these nations have created a scarcity that is pushing oil prices higher. Just like how a rare product becomes more expensive when it's hard to find, this reduction in supply is driving up costs for consumers worldwide. This move is a strategic effort by OPEC to protect its own interests, but its ripple effects are already making everyday life more expensive. In the United States, higher oil prices are already having a noticeable impact. From fueling vehicles to shipping goods, everything is getting pricier. This increase in costs is placing additional strain on American families and businesses, making it harder for them to manage expenses. Some economic experts warn that if oil prices continue to rise, it could trigger a broader slowdown or even lead to a full-blown recession. The U.S. response: turning to shale oil. In response to these challenges, the U.S. has turned to its own resources, particularly its vast shale oil reserves. This has led to record-high production levels, helping to counteract some of the effects of OPEC's decision. However, extracting shale oil is significantly more expensive than traditional drilling methods, which makes this approach financially risky. If oil prices were to drop suddenly, maintaining shale oil production would become unsustainable, adding another layer of uncertainty to an already volatile situation. At the same time, another significant transformation is taking place in the global energy market: the rise of electric vehicles, EVs. Millions of EVs are expected to hit the road in the coming years, with many countries planning to phase out gasoline-powered cars entirely. This shift could reduce the demand for oil over time, forcing oil-producing nations and companies to rethink their long-term strategies. Canada's shifting trade strategy. Meanwhile, Canada is dealing with its own set of challenges in the world of trade. Historically, Canada and the U.S. have shared a strong economic relationship, but recent American policies, such as high tariffs on key imports, have strained their bond. Industries like steel, aluminum, and dairy have been particularly affected, prompting Canada to seek alternative trading partners. To reduce its dependence on the U.S., Canada is exploring new trade agreements, including a potential partnership with the United Kingdom, Australia, and New Zealand, known as CANZIC. This proposed trade alliance would allow goods to move freely across borders without extra taxes, while also making it easier for workers to operate in member countries. Given their common language and legal systems, this partnership could provide Canada with a more stable economic future. However, the big question remains: can this new alliance truly compete with Canada's deep-rooted economic ties to the United States? While Canada is working to spread its trade connections, it isn't turning its back on the U.S. completely. Deals like the one with the European Union have already given Canadian businesses access to a massive market of 500 million consumers. By adding CANZIC to its network of trade partners, Canada aims to create a safety net in case its relationship with the U.S. deteriorates further. The U.S. realizes it still needs Canadian oil. On the energy front, a surprising shift is taking place in U.S. policy. Not long ago, American leaders claimed they didn't need Canadian oil. But now, they are rushing to restart the Keystone XL pipeline, a project that was previously halted due to environmental and political concerns. The Keystone XL pipeline was designed to transport Canadian oil deep into American refineries, many of which are specifically built to process heavy crude from Canada. With fuel demand rising and energy prices fluctuating, The U.S. is realizing just how crucial Canadian oil really is. A trade war on the horizon? Despite these renewed energy ties, tensions between the U.S. and Canada are escalating. In March 2025, the U.S. is set to impose a 25% tariff on a wide range of Canadian goods, including food, industrial materials, and consumer products. In response, Canada is preparing its own counter tariffs, which could impact key American industries such as agriculture, manufacturing, and automobiles. There is also growing speculation that Canada might restrict its exports of oil and natural gas as a retaliatory measure. If this happens, American fuel prices could skyrocket even further, creating a serious economic dilemma. The question remains, how far is the U.S. willing to push before it risks a full-blown trade conflict with its northern neighbor? The high stakes of energy independence. The stakes are incredibly high. If Canada decided to limit its energy exports, U.S. gas prices could surge by 20 to 30% within months. This would make fuel significantly more expensive, increasing transportation and production costs across multiple industries. American businesses would struggle to keep up, and some might even shut down due to unsustainable expenses. In addition, other countries like China and India could step in to purchase Canada's energy resources, further weakening the U.S.'s hold on its energy supply. This could create a scenario where the U.S. finds itself increasingly dependent on OPEC nations once again, something it has been trying to avoid for years. The Keystone XL pipeline. A missed opportunity? For years, the Keystone XL pipeline was seen as the key to U.S. energy security. Supporters argued that it would create thousands of jobs, ensure a steady flow of oil, and even help lower fuel prices. However, critics pointed out the environmental risks, from potential oil spills to the impact of tar sands extraction, which emits significantly more greenhouse gases than conventional oil drilling. Now, with the original developer TC Energy stepping away from the project, it remains unclear whether the pipeline will ever be completed. If the U.S. truly wants to reduce its reliance on foreign oil, it will need to develop a long-term strategy, one that goes beyond simply imposing tariffs and trade restrictions. Could Canada weaponize its energy exports? If tensions continue to rise, Canada could use its vast energy resources as a powerful bargaining chip. This wouldn't be the first time a major energy supplier leveraged its position. Russia once used its natural gas supply to pressure Europe, causing widespread economic disruptions. Could Canada follow a similar strategy? If American trade policies continue to harm Canadian industries, Ottawa might consider redirecting its oil and gas exports to other buyers, such as the European Union or China. While this move would be unprecedented, it is not entirely out of the question. The potential fallout of an energy war. If Canada were to cut off its energy exports, the consequences would be severe. U.S. gas prices would soar, factories might struggle to obtain essential materials, and households in colder states like Michigan and Minnesota could face serious heating shortages during winter. This wouldn't just be a financial crisis, it would be a major political issue as well. Leaders on both sides would be forced to act quickly to prevent economic collapse. But by the time solutions are found, the damage could already be done. Canada's future, looking beyond the U.S.? While Canada has always been closely tied to the U.S., there's a growing movement within the country to seek greater independence. In provinces like Alberta, where oil production is a key part of the economy, discussions are already taking place about selling energy to other global markets instead of relying so heavily on the U.S. At the moment, this shift seems unlikely, but if tensions continue to rise, Canada could very well decide to diversify its trade and energy exports. This would mark a major turning point in North American relations, fundamentally changing the economic landscape for both countries. So, is the U.S. truly prepared for a future without Canadian energy? And is Canada ready to take a bold step toward economic independence? The coming years will reveal whether these two neighbors can find common ground, or if they're destined for a major trade war that could reshape global energy markets.